Okay, so I said I was going to make a video about my experience with pregnancy and having my son. So when I first got pregnant, I was 18 and I wasn't with my mom and I wasn't living with my dad, so I didn't really have somebody who already experienced something similar to this or any of that around me to help guide me and kind of let me know the do's and don'ts and what's a red flag and what's not. So I remember when I got pregnant, I was 150 pounds. And by the end of my pregnancy, I literally reached 315. So I remember gaining weight really quick. Like I'm talking about 20 pounds every time I'm coming up to the doctors. Every 2 weeks, 20 pounds. That's a lot. Especially with the fact that I was eating the same amount that I was eating prior to me getting pregnant. And every time I would go to the OB, they would tell me, oh, well, you need to slow down the eating, this and that. And then I would show them how swollen I was. If I show y'all how swollen my feet were, my body was, and the way that I used to feel, my breathing, I would tell them. And I even have a video of me breathing. I recorded myself so that, because I know I'm not crazy. But I was young, I didn't know any better, and it was just me and my son's dad, and he didn't know either. It was our first baby. So I'm over here thinking okay, I need to slow down the eating, this and this and that. So at this point, I am 300 pounds, going to the doctors. I've gained 150 pounds, and they still have seen 0 red flags. To me, I don't know, I'm thinking I'm just big. I didn't know what was going on. I'm thinking that I just got big. This is normal to get this big during pregnancy. Normal weight to gain during pregnancy is 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds. 150 something pounds is insane. So I remember I went in for my 39-week checkup and my blood pressure was through the roof. So they told me that they were going to take it a couple more times in the course of in the span of 2 hours. So after they did and it was still high, they told me that they were going to send me to AIAN hospital here in Philadelphia. So again, I'm not even from Philly, so I didn't even know the stigma that hospital has and how everybody knows that that's the worst hospital ever. Mind you, just to be clear, all the staffing that I had, the nurses and the doctors and even the new doctor, no person of color at all. They were all white. And it's not to sit here and just say that, oh, white people this, but it's just stating a fact. Now, I had my son, and I remember when I was pushing my son, the nurse kept pressing the button to my epidural, kept pressing the machine because she said for me to press it when I would feel pain. But she kept pressing and I asked her to stop because it just felt like a lot. So after you have the baby, when you have epidural, and they basically give you a certain time frame before you're able to move around comfortably, and it's supposed to be normal for you to be able to move around after a certain amount of hours, right? They sent me home completely numb on half my leg down. So it was one leg that was half numb and the other leg was completely numb. I couldn't feel it at all, completely. And they still sent me home. So now before they sent me home, I kept telling them that I had a lot of chest pain that I had been feeling during my pregnancy. Oh, that's just probably gas, this and this and that. I'm I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. They made me walk around the hospital with my numb legs. And like I said, all of this sounds oh my God, I would never, or how could they, or why didn't you? I was literally a teenager. I didn't even know what was wrong and what wasn't. I didn't know. I'm thinking okay, the doctor says, so I'm gonna do it. I'm trying to make sure that I'm okay. So I remember, they sent me home with my blood pressure high, my chest hurting, and numb. And I remember when they took me outside to the car, they made me get out of the wheelchair before we even set the baby up in the car because they needed it for someone else, push me off. So now I go home, and that same night I'm telling my son's dad, something doesn't feel right, my chest hurts. He was the doctor said that I was normal, X, Y, and Z. The next day we wake up and I'm I can't breathe. I feel I'm fighting for air. I'm something is not right. So he was okay. So he drove back from taking his brother to an appointment. He came to me, took me to the hospital, took me to Chestnut Hill Hospital here. in Philly. And when they took me there, after they ran some tests, 4 doctors, 3 nurses, and 2 EMTs came in. So I started freaking out immediately, like, what's going on? I had my son with me, and my son's dad was there. Mind you, my son is literally a day and a half old now at this point. Or no, 3 days old, because we were in the hospital for 2 days after I gave birth. So, I'm over here, like, freaking out, and they're telling me that I have severe preeclampsia, and my body is about to start shutting down. So basically, I was retaining water, the high blood pressure, the gaining weight, and I had retained so much water that the water was actually starting to fill up my lungs. So I had about this much space to breathe. So I have a video, I gotta find it, where you can hear when I was breathing, it sounded like I was gargling water in my chest. And I remember that from there, they were like, we don't have an OBGYN care unit here, so we have to send you back to Einstein. And I'm like, there's got to be another hospital, but they said I was the closest one because I was in immediate danger of dying. And they wanted to make sure that I got help now and not have to drive further away to another hospital that was potentially going to be filled. So they sent me over to Einstein again. Einstein put me in the waiting room, left me there in one of those rooms with the curtains that's not even a room. You're in the emergency unit. They left me there for 3 hours before they saw me. By the time they came to see me, I had passed out because I couldn't breathe. I was literally gasping for air, and I didn't even have the strength to press the button to call for help. But they never checked on me, even though they knew the severity of my case and they knew why I was sent there and how important it was. So they take me upstairs, and they ended up putting me to sleep for a while and draining me of the fluids that I had. So after all those times that I went to the doctor and they told me to lose weight, slow down the eating and all that stuff, they literally drained me of 55 pounds of water in 2 days. 2 days. So I literally deflated like a balloon. My entire body was wrinkly everywhere. Like, everywhere. I looked chewed up, my feet, everywhere, all over my body. And then I kept losing more and more weight. Since then, I have lost 100 pounds, and only about 30 of that was from me actually gaining. Only about 30 of those pounds was me actually gaining weight during my pregnancy. The rest of the weight was literally water weight. And what I found crazy was my OBGYN was part of Einstein as well. It was just in a separate office. And he showed up there when I was half asleep and they were draining me of the fluids. He literally comes in and laughs and he goes, I guess it was all just water weight, huh? He literally made a joke. After I almost died, I ended up being in a hospital for about 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks of my son's life, I was asleep. Didn't have my son at all. Couldn't see my son. My son was not allowed in that part of the hospital that I was in because that was, I'm not sure what it was because I was literally asleep the whole time. I woke up in a separate unit. But that was an area where no children were allowed, only adults, and it was only one. So, and it didn't matter because I was asleep. So yeah, you know, a lot of people always ask me, like, are you gonna have another kid? Like, pregnancy this, pregnancy that. Obviously, I'm still young, so, you know, things can change later on. But that's a scary thing to go through. You know, like, that's terrifying. And I was literally a teenager with no support, no help from anyone. It was just me, my son, and his dad. So, you know, it's just crazy that, you know, you hear stories and you see stuff online, you see statistics, but when you have your own experience, it definitely gives you a different perspective on things, and it makes you just have, like, pure disgust and feel so sad for the other women that didn't make it. You know what I mean? Because there's so many women that have died going through these experiences. Just being black women coming in to have your baby, you don't always know if you're going to come back home with your baby.